Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to cover lesson 12, which uses where we use brushes, the brush tools to create an ad. This is the final product here. And you can see that we have some tea leaves. And here's the illustration of a tea leaf, how we can turn this into an art brush. You can see at the top where we have the word instrumental. This is a calligraphic brush where we're using that. We have some other decorative brushes that we're using here. We're going to use some pattern brushes. We're going to use some bristle brushes to get a variety of effects. So all in all, when you're using the brush tools, and I think used in the right context, they can be very effective. They can add visual contrast to what otherwise is sort of a straightforward, straight, kind of mechanical look of Illustrator, because what many of them do can simulate traditional brushes and that sort of thing that you would see in the real world. Fundamentally, there are 5 different brushes that you have available to you. There's a calligraphic brush, there is an art brush, there is also a bristle brush, a pattern brush, and a scatter brush. A scatter brush is the only one that we will not be using. So, but it can be kind of nifty too. In previous iterations of Illustrator, when we used done the lessons, they have used it, but not this time. Anyway, here's our brush tool over here. And what we can also do is maybe introduce the Blob Brush, which is kind of interesting as well. And use that in conjunction with the eraser tool down here. Eraser tool is interesting too, because that will erase everything if you wish. So we'll be using the brush tools. I can introduce the Blob Brush, and in the very end, we'll be using the eraser tools to show you what that does. Over in our panels, here are brushes. I've already pulled them off here. So you can see that there are some that we, in the finished version here, that have been added and created. And when we switch to the start file, you'll see that there are some basic brushes that every file starts with. So if we look at the panel, you can see down at the bottom that there are a library of brushes, and you can see that we have arrow brushes, we have artistic brushes, or calligraphic, chalk, charcoal, pencil, ink, paintbrush, scroll brush, watercolor brushes, there are border brushes, which are basically pattern brushes, a whole bunch of libraries of brushes. Anytime you pull off a panel and you see the little library symbol, you should really take a look and see that all of the variations or the library of tools that they have available to you that you can use as is or customize and create your own. So that's that. And over here, we can create libraries panel. I'll put that back over. Now, some of these are grayed out down here, but I can remove a brush stroke from here if I wish. Options for selected starting a stroke. If you want to create a new brush, that's what we do here. With a typical symbol here, the little trash can is if you want to delete a brush. So this is what it looks like when we're done. Let's go ahead and switch to the start file. I hope I have better luck today than I did yesterday with my computer, but so far it seems to be working pretty well. But I believe there was by recording this on Zoom and using some processor intensive features of Illustrator, that it just really bogged everything down. Anyway, so you can see that we have some basic strokes that they provided for us. And you can see right here, we have, if I select that and we look at that under the art tools that what has been provided here, and you look at the property, the panel at the top or options panel, that the brush definition that has been used is kind of a charcoal effect. At any time you want to remove a brush, an effect from that, what we can do is you can either use the brush panel. So I can come over here and it says remove brush stroke from here. And that takes us back to a basic brush stroke. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing that is if you have the options panel at the top, you can see that it has brush definition and it shows that the one here, the charcoal, is being used. But I can switch to basic and that does the same thing. Then we can come over here and again, either at the top, the stroke size is at the moment is a 20 point. We can reduce that down. And as it's selected, as I click on the down button, it can go all the way down to 4, 3, 5, none. Okay. So that's where we start with that. The next step is we're going to take a calligraphic brush and we're going to apply it to the word pure, it should be mental, so that we can create a little bit more interesting appearance to this. Right now, again, this is kind of typical to Illustrator, is that when you apply a stroke, it's, if you want a pristine, even stroke, it's just perfect. It works really nice. However, what we're going to do is we're going to apply a different one. We're going to change the one to, let's see, which one do they want? They want us, I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to go to the library here and see if we already have it available here. And I'm going to make sure that we go to artistic and calligraphic is up. So that's what I have here already. Then what we want to do is we're going to select a 5-point flat brush. So I'm going to come over here. That's the 10. There's the 5-point here. And you'll notice immediately with the text selected, and this is no longer editable text, just to let you know, it's been converted to a path, that I get the thick and thin you would associate with a calligraphic tool. Okay, that's pretty neat. And now if I change the stroke from over here to 0.8, I can go all the way up. And you can see that I can make it considerably wider here. That's all for, take it down to a 2-point and see what it does. So that's one of the things that we can do. I'm going to switch from, if you want to change the color of it, just select the stroke because it is applied to the stroke. And if I select black, you can see that it goes to black. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this particular brush and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to make it an 8-point brush. And then we'll leave it as black. It won't be pink anymore. So let's come back over here. I'm going to go ahead and double click on the brush. And it brings up another options panel. So what I can do now is I can change the angle of it if I wish. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. Okay. As I do, notice how it changes a little bit. So we're going to change it to, I believe what they want is around, 30 degrees or so. That ought to do it. If it's a little bit different, then it's a little bit different. The size of it at the moment is 5-point. We're going to change this to maybe 8-point. Again, you can play with a slider until you get a look that you like. And we can go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to go ahead and it gives us, when I click OK, it gives me an option. It says, do you want to apply the strokes to whatever I've done, or do you want to leave them alone? And that means that the new brush that we've created will be applied to something that we do in the future. Well, I'm going to go ahead and select Apply to Strokes, and I'm done. So that's pretty cool. It has a nice, calligraphic look. And some other things that we can do with this, which are really pretty nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select, let's try this here. I'm going to go ahead with my new calligraphic tool here. That's 8-point. And I'm going to use the brush tool now instead. And I want to add some flourishes to this. I want to create a cross member to the T. And I also want to take where the P is here and maybe extend that a little bit, make it a little bit more interesting. So to do that, we're going to switch to the pen tool. Notice, as I said, that this is no longer editable text. It's all been changed to a path. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here like so and drag. Notice that I get a nice path. Now, if I don't like that, I can always come over there. I can go again, and it didn't do it. Let's go back again. Let's undo that. And I'm going to go try again. It's going to create and drag. And I get a nice cross. Now, if I come over the edge of this, let's go ahead and make sure that it's selected. Make sure that I have the brush tool selected here. Let's see if I can't click here and drag across. Now, nope, see, it adds, when it isn't selected, it adds, it creates a brand new path. So I want to make sure that it's selected, select the brush tool. And then when I move over the edge of that, you're going to see a little kind of backslash. As soon as I begin to click and drag like so, notice how it added to that. And I didn't like that. I'm going to go back again and I'm going to do something, make sure that it looks a little bit more interesting, like so. So it will actually add to the end of the paths. And I can do that up here as well. Likewise, if I select, let's go back and select this one. And with it selected, I can come back with the brush tool. And I can, again, come back over here and notice a little backslash. And I can, oh, it didn't do it. It should change it. There we go. There we go. So if you have to click on it, it will change it. Now I can, if I want, I can move this because it is a separate entity into position. And I've got some nice, much more elegant, I think, text than what we had before. So that's really pretty nice. I like that a lot. I used to do some hand lettering myself, and this really, I admire people who can do hand lettering. They are a unique breed of people. Person that hired me at Cerritos College, Larry Brady, was an excellent calligrapher. He was one of the best in the world. And his wife was too, Marcia. They really could do some really nice stuff. But now this kind of puts, you know, all the work they have done over the years and the skills that they have developed in the hands of people like you and me who haven't maybe done this that much. And can make ours, I won't say as nice, but it can be very nice. So what we're going to do next is we're going to create our custom brush, art brush. Before we create, I already removed the stroke from here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to come up here and we're going to change these a little bit. So let me select this one here. And the one we're going to do is we're going to apply, I got to find which one I want. It is, it's an art, okay, it is an art brush. So let's look under the library here. And it's an art brush, but what I want under artistic brush is I want, I don't calligraphic chalk. No, I want decorative. Sorry, there we go. So let's look at elegant curl and floral brush set. Again, you can spend a lot of time looking at variations of these and get some really nice looks here. So here's one here. Here's a floral stem fool. Why don't I try that one? Now that's kind of big, so that I can always edit that and change that one. Come back here. That one. So let's use that one right there. That's the first one that we have. That was the floral stem 2. Now what I can do here is let's go ahead and move over. Let's select this one, and you can see how it adds that nice little flourish to the end of the path. I'll select this one as well and added a nice little flourish to the end of it. Whether or not that is the one that the textbook selected, it's not important. Because remember, with Illustrator, you can edit these until the cows come home. You can change them ad infinitum. So let's select this one. Let's select, let's try another one here. Yeah, see, it's flipped the wrong way. I can always double click on that. So here's the one that I just added. It's floral stem 5. And if I want, I can change the direction of this. Like so, turn off preview, back. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click OK. It's going to ask me, do I want to apply it to the strokes? And I can. Notice how it flipped it. So you can always flip back and forth. You can change the scale of them, switch to a different one and a different style, and use multiple styles if you wish. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to apply an existing art brush. And that's one that we actually just do. We're going to create an art brush. So that's an existing one. Now we're going to create our own custom art brush. And that's going to be using these tea leaves right here. So how we do that is I first select this, and we can also use bitmap images. I don't like using bitmap images because they don't scale well, but instead we're using a kind of predefined group here. And what we can do is we can take this, and by selecting it first, I can come over to my brush panel, and I'm going to select a new brush. And it will give me the options of the different kinds of brush that I can select. I'm going to select art brush. Okay, and click OK. And it shows me what it's going to look like. I can start by saying stretch to fit stroke length. And then later we're going to go in and we're going to stretch between guides to use precise measurements. And then we may have to switch the directions if we need to. We could also change the color. We can flip back and forth, up and down, modify it in any number of ways. And that can be done for each individual stroke. So I'm going to click OK to create our brand new stroke. And it should be down here at the bottom. Let's see what we have here. No, it's added it right here. So now I can deselect that. And I can select this one, this stroke here, and let's apply it and see what it does. Now it's going in the wrong direction. So what I need to do is I need to double click, and I'm going to change it like so. Let's turn off preview, turn it back on, and let's try again. I'm going to go ahead and apply the strokes. And there you go. It's going in the correct direction. But what I can do now is I can select each of these, or I can group select them by holding down the Shift key, or any number of other techniques that we've learned this semester for selecting multiple paths. And once they are all selected, I can go ahead and I can select our new tea leaf. And in a heartbeat, I've done something that if I did by hand would take a considerably length of time, much longer than what it just took me now, which is just a matter of a second or two. So to edit this particular brush, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to, let's change this to 2 point with them all selected. So it's a little bit larger, okay? And then what I can do, yeah, that looks okay. Notice that it changes the properties of it considerably. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here and I'm going to double click on it. As I said, we can do it to a specific length. So I'm going to stretch between guides now. And I'm going to come back and I may have to change it in a minute. We're going to use, they renamed this and they called it Geometric 17, I believe. No, where I'm ahead a little bit. That's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to change that. I wanted to come back. My mistake, my bad. I skipped something here. My apologies. So I'm going to go back. Let's cancel this for a minute. Okay. I'm going to go back to the 1 point again. So that gives us the better size. But what I want to do now is I can duplicate this if I wish to create another brush that's similar, but maybe a little bit different. I can also come back in here, and this is where I wanted to get the numbers from the book here. Let's go back in here and I'm going to double click, put in here. I'm going to stretch between guides. And what they want us to do is we want us to put in here 7 and 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to put 7.375 inches. And this goes to 10.8587. 7. There we go. So again, I'm going to click OK. I'm going to apply the strokes and see if that changes a little bit, and it does. Notice how rather than the tea leaves or the leaves themselves fitting the entire length, they now kind of or more they're pushed more to the top of the stem itself. So that works pretty nice for us. So that's an art brush that we've created. We select all of these. And our next step is we're going to create what is called a pattern brush. Now they provided the element for us here, which is this little decorative element right here. And we're going to turn this into a brush that can be applied to a path to allow us to repeat that element, multiple times along the path. So I'm going to go ahead and select it like so, click and drag across. And I'm going to hit the plus button here. Create a new one. And this one I want to be a pattern brush. I click OK. And it's going to give me options. And you can see here that under pattern brush, we can again name this whatever we want. That it shows us the options for wherever there's a corner, if there is a corner, and where there's a straight line where it's going to be. If I have an inside corner, then I can use a different image. If I have an end point, I can use a different image for that, and a different one for the start point. So I have multiple options for me for selecting along the straight path and along corners where it's going to look, what it's going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, like so. Deselect the shape, then come back over here. Let's zoom in on our circle here. And I'm going to select this, and I'm going to apply our new pattern path. Now, what I want to do is I just simply want to change the size of this. Okay, so all I have to do is double click in here, and where it says scale fixed, I can go ahead and I can reduce this to about 50% so that it fits a little better. And again, every time I apply this particular pattern path, I can have it change. So notice how it's updating for me, which is really kind of nice, and why it wasn't showing preview before. Again, I have the feeling that that has to do with my processor and the graphic for the graphics card. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click OK. Okay, and I'm going to apply the strokes. And that looks pretty nice. Now, what I can do is, if you want to change this to a light green color, one of the things that I would probably want to do would be to duplicate this. I don't know that the book tells us to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it anyway. So we have a copy of it. I'm going to go ahead and select this one. And I'm going to come up here to the shape that we had used before, the little illustration. And I'm going to change the color of it. So I'm going to select it again, like so. And I'm going to come back in the stroke color here. And I'm going to use this light, it's kind of a light mint green here. So that changes it. That's not the color that I wanted. I don't want that one either. Why is it not here? Oh, here it is. That's the one I want, a little bit softer color here that match the one that we have over here. So I'll deselect. Or actually, I'm going to select it. And let me come back and see if I can't edit this one. Otherwise, I will create a brand new one here. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on it. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. So let me undo that. It applied that to it, and I didn't want to do that. So let's deselect. And let's come back here. And let's see if I can't come back in here and change the properties of this. So if I come back and I can't, so let's see, I'm going to come back up here. And I'm going to just say none for right now. And then I'm going to come back again and see if I can't go back to the original. Nope, it's not doing it for me. So I'm going to cancel. I'm going to go back to the brush that I duplicated. Show you that you can duplicate and create a separate one if you wish. But I'll go ahead and I'll delete it. I'm going to go ahead and select this one again. And now with this one, I will create a brand new stroke or brand new pattern brush. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now you can see now for the corner, so I have a light kind of minty green. We have these other options for the corners. And those are worth exploring as well to see what they look like. So I'm going to leave it with this one, click OK. And now deselect, make sure that the path is deselected. You can come over here, come back again. I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to go back again. I'm going to select the minty green. And again, it's giving me quite large one, so I'm going to change the size of this. Again, the scale of it to 50%. There we go. I'll click OK. And I want to apply 2 strokes. So there we go. So one more to create, a different kind of pattern brush. And that's going to be created maybe I should have already done this. I'm going to select a triangle. And I might be skipping a step here. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go to my brush libraries, and I'm going to look at pattern brushes. Let's see, I don't want bristle brushes, image brush, border brushes, which are basically pattern brushes. We can look in here, and I think we want the geometric ones. So I'll select that, and we're going to see what we have here. And we want this one here. We want to select geometric 17, and you can see it's a very subtle pattern here. But now we've applied that to our triangle. It's a nice way of doing borders. extremely nice way. And again, we can go back in and we can edit that as well. One of the last things that they want us to do is they want us to, in here, whoops, I didn't want to change that. I'm going to go to view, and I'm going to go to rotate view, go back to 0. Okay, I'm using the zoom out a little bit. There we go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to apply a bristle brush. So let me switch and go to the brush libraries. And we're going to use that minty green color that we selected before to apply bristle brush to. I don't like how they've applied it. Let's look at the end so you can see. It's these little green strokes that have been applied over to this, over these. It's okay, but I'm not real crazy about it. So we have here one already that's a mop brush that's part of the bristle brushes. You could use that. So let's go ahead and let's try that with ours. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to deselect. And I'm going to try, here's a one here. Here's the mop brush that is 6 pixels. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to open up the brush library under bristle brushes. So let's look at the bristle brush library. And here's the one that is a mop brush for 6 pixels, which we already have here. We can also look at the bottom here. And here's one, let's see which this is. Let's go ahead and add this one. When you do that, it just simply adds it. So this is a fan brush. And to edit the size of it, we can either do it from here, we can do it from the scale, or I can do that as soon as I apply that. Let's go ahead and use our brush tool here. And we have the 3-point. And I'm going to switch from a black stroke to the one that we have here, that light minty green. Now I can come back with the brush tool and I can click and drag across like so. Very small, line, doesn't do much of anything for us. So I can come back here and I can change the stroke width. I'm going to go back to that. Let's go to maybe 5. Notice how much bigger it becomes. So we can go back and forth and across and add those little features that they want us to add. Add a little bit of color to the leaves. And it really should be on top of the leaves, but you get the basic idea of what I'm doing here. And now if you want, you can erase, but you need to be very, very careful. Now I put all of these on the pattern layer, and this is a good reason for using different layers. I can put it on an art layer. I can put it on the calligraphic layer. I can put it on any number of layers. I'm going to put it on its own layer, and you'll see why in a minute. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the eraser tool. So watch what happens when I come back here. And if all the layers are activated and I can come back here, I can click and see how I can erase part of the path like so. But you have to be careful, because if I go back over an area that's already been done here, look at what it did. It cut that triangle and it cut the tea leaves in half. I don't want to do that. So this would be a good reason for creating our own layer specifically for the bristle brush that we're using. So let me undo all of the brushes that I created. Put them on their own layer, which the book doesn't tell you to do that, but this is what I would do. And I want them to be on top of everything. So I'm going to create a brand new layer, and I'm going to name it Bristle Brush. Okay. And so that I don't accidentally erase other things, I'm going to use the lock feature that we learned in one of the last exercises to lock everything else down. so I don't accidentally work with that and affect those. So let's use the brush tool again. I have my 3-point brush here. Let's go ahead and click across. Let's add some to our, color to our tea leaves. Go across like so. Okay, you get the idea. Not exactly like the brush, but or like the book. But now what I can do is I can take the eraser tool and I can proceed to erase. But notice I can go across all of my illustration and it's not affecting anything but that one layer because I locked it down. That's how I would work this. Okay. Now, I also said at the very end here, what I want to do is I want to introduce the Blob Brush tool. That's really pretty cool. So I'm going to move this out of the way, this little piece that we have here. Oh, I locked it. So I got to take some stick art. Where is it? I got to unlock everything now. I don't know what layer they put it on. Put it out of the, get it out of the way. So let's say for starters, I started with a little circle, maybe a star. It doesn't really matter. Okay. And I'm going to take the stroke and I'm going to make it none. And I'm going to take the fill and I'm going to make it black, or let's make it red, just for the heck of it. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to move it. Use the move tool, put it in place. Now, what if I wanted to hand draw on top of this? So what I could do is I could use what is called the Blob Brush. And you can see the little icon here, the brush size. If you hit the right bracket key, it enlarges it. If you hit the left bracket key, it makes it a little bit smaller. And now what I can do is I can go over this shape like so, and I can draw on it like so in here. Now I'm going to hit Command Y to look at this and to turn off the preview and put it in outline mode. And notice what it did. It integrated those brush strokes that I was making with the star shape. So this is one continuous line now. And if I go ahead and I select the direct selection tool here, you're going to see all the additional anchor points that it created with that. So that's pretty nifty. If you feel more comfortable maybe using a Wacom tablet, or you don't mind using your mouse, and you want to enhance or hand draw into that path, you're welcome to do so. But it has to be a shape. And then, as I said, you can change the size of it. And now we can go back and let's go back to preview mode. And now let's go ahead and on top of here, let's use the eraser tool. So now I can come back in here, and what if I wanted to create a hole in the middle of this? I can do that. If I wanted to take parts of this and erase it off, I can do that. Create all kinds of little custom shapes, and it continues to be one shape here. Or if I drag across it like so, now I have two shapes. I have this one irregular shape, and I have this end piece right here. And again, to prove that, and you have to use the same colors for the Blob Brush. You can see that in outline mode. So I hope that's pretty much all I needed to cover today. And I'm lucky my computer was working pretty nicely today. No glitches. Turn that off, that. Have our brushes up here. I'm going to go ahead and reset everything. So let's come back here, and I'm going to reset Essentials Classic so that we're back. And I can zoom out a little bit so you can see what we've covered today. Okay. So I can come back and let's look at our finished version, see if there's a little bit of a difference. Slight difference, but again, it has to do with maybe changing the sizes a little bit, and that's something that you would do yourself anyway. So for example, if I select, one of the things that I notice, if I select this pattern brush here for the border, I can come back here and we can bump this up just a little bit. See that? I'm changing it to a 2-point. That's one way of changing it, or changing the brush size itself. Yeah, it's an okay design. Anyway, brushes. I think they can, under the right circumstances, enhance your illustrations considerably. They add variety. They can add contrast and texture from a very straight, mechanical looking path to one that's more expressionistic, that you would see, something that you would see using natural or media, like real charcoal or real bristle brushes or that sort of thing. You can also make short work of it if you want to create patterns. I think the art brush for the tea leaves is also a good example of not having to repeat yourself and to be able to create one basic shape for yourself or one basic little illustration, and then applying it to multiple paths, and it makes short order of something that normally would take you quite a while to do. Of course, you could also do it once and you could duplicate the path itself, but notice that this, by using a brush, it follows the arc of the path itself. So I can always come back in here and I can use the direct selection tool, and I could select this path. Let's go back under the pen tool here. And yeah, I'm going to change the direction here. So if I click on the anchor point, notice that as I change the direction of that, it's now following the path. And I can come back in here, and that takes much less work than if I had it duplicated from before. So this would be a good candidate for using the brush tool. Yep. So that's all I have today. Today's a little bit shorter than usual. Everybody have a good weekend. And remember, next week is our last week. At the end of the week, your final assignment will be due, which is the architectural detail. What I would like you to know about that is that's meant to be an experimental piece. So using the subject of architecture is arbitrary. If you want to use anything else, you can. And when I teach the class in person, I often ask, if you would rather do a portrait, be my guest, do a portrait. If you want to do a portrait of your dog, that would be fine, or your cat, or your goldfish or something. The goal is to use tools that you haven't really utilized so far in Illustrator and experiment with them and try different approaches, different stylistic techniques that you were maybe a little bit too afraid to try before, rather than to follow kind of a habit or a pattern that you've already established. But try, not be afraid, but try something a little bit different. Okay, so again, the final assignment is an experimental piece. It's the architectural detail assignment. It's to be 8.5 by 11, vertical or horizontal. It doesn't have, the subject does not have to be an architectural detail. It can be any subject that you want, but the goal is to experiment, to use tools and techniques that you haven't really tried before, to discover something considerably different, a unique style, a new unique approach that you haven't tried before. Okay, so that's it. I'm gonna say goodbye. See if somebody else is here. No, I'm it. So I'm gonna stop and pause the recording. I'm gonna say goodbye. Have a good weekend. And this should be posted shortly. Okay, bye-bye.